What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Mojave, and I can already hear what you're about to say. Roz, you've already done a run as a regulator in FNV already. You did too, in fact. Yes, but I didn't play through Fallout New Vegas as a Fallout 1 regulator, now did I? Don't expect these guys to be similar in any way to their Fallout 3 counterpart, because these guys, well, let's just say they operate with a whole different deck. We'll talk about them more shortly. First, let's go over what we have access to this run. I gotta say, I think metal armor is a first for the channel. Very excited to make use of it. I don't really use metal armor that much casually either, so this should be fun. Heavy armor is always a nice treat. And gotta say, we have quite the unique assortment of weapons too. The shotgun is a 12 gauge as represented by the ammunition on screen, but I'm gonna treat that like we can use any 12 gauge, though with all this at our disposal, I don't even know if we're gonna be making use of a shotgun. And yeah, I know, and stay back is very OP, so I should feel inclined to use one, but I don't feel like taking that perk this run. I'm a bit distracted by the fact that we can use a sledgehammer. That's definitely a first for the channel, and I am very excited for that too, because the harder you bonk things, the quicker they tend to go down. Couldn't find any tagged skills on the wiki, which is a bummer, so I went with guns, melee weapons, and survival. Our weapons, minus the C4, are all guns and melee, and survival is always a fun skill to use in hardcore mode. Since this isn't Fallout 3, we don't have bobbleheads to track down, which is unfortunate, though if it were, I'd pick small guns. Maybe it's just me, but I always thought that combining big and small guns was a really weird choice, because the old games aren't like that at all. But at least it doesn't affect our protagonist for this run. In Fallout 1, the Ripper is called a vibroblade. Now, maybe I'm Berenstaining myself here. That's with an E, by the way. But isn't that also the same weapon from the Star Wars universe? It's been a long time since I dove into that AU. Maybe one day for the channel, but let's focus on the here and now. And before we set the scene, here's a little recap on Fallout 1 regulators. They're one of 5 gangs found in the boneyard of Fallout 1, specifically in a town called, I can't pronounce it, but I'm gonna try. Aditum? Someone correct me on that. You know, it's funny, I played through Fallout 1 and beaten, and I still can't pronounce that name. Anyway, they run their territory with an iron fist. Their brutality extends beyond simply staying alive and remaining in power, but by rounding up people and forcing them to work, lest they face summary execution. Yeah, they're slavers. I'm not sure what their canon fate is, as I haven't checked, but when I played Fallout 1, I took them out after exposing their little scheme in which they framed another gang, the Blades, and they were manipulating the mayor of Aditum the entire time. Knowing the canon of Fallout 1, this is the likely canon fate of the regulators. So, as we know, the events of Fallout 1 were a very long time ago by the time the events of Fallout New Vegas come strutting around. The regulators have long since been extinguished, so how is one here in the Mojave? Well, my friends, it's time for the best part of any of my Fallout Challenge intros, setting the scene. Oh, and by the way, I did it. I never brought it up once, but it's something I've always wanted to do. I found the official Roz scene setting music for Midlothian Odyssey. Get ready. Decades ago, when the Vault Dweller came to the Boneyard and exposed the regulators with that infamous holotape, there were a few who managed to avoid their wrath, namely because we weren't in the area at the time. By we, I mean our ancestors, but they found out the hard way that the regulators are no longer welcome anywhere near Angel's Boneyard. So we kindly vacated the premise, and by that I mean we just stayed well out of Dodge and survived leaving. And like any good villainous faction or character who comes back to fight another day, we make our way away from the action. So we go south. How far south? Well, this was a bit of a tough question for me, but I came up with an answer that I thought would be very interesting. During our journey through what we know in the modern day as California and Arizona, our regulator ancestors operated as mercs with a style not too dissimilar to that of the Talon company from out east. Any job, any target, as long as the price is right. But our group's new leader, as Caleb has long since been out of the picture, has had one motive in mind the entire time, a motive passed down from generation to generation: revenge. Our surviving brothers and sisters in arms managed to settle down in the city of Hermosillo. See, since our exodus, we managed to recruit some numbers along the way. Now, our recruitment's not easy, but realizing the need for numbers, we've acquired some able-bodied warriors along the way. Since we don't know what happened at Hermosillo in the state of Sonora in the Fallout universe, I'm gonna say it's not too dissimilar from Raul's story in Mexico City. Now, Raul does tell us as Courier 6 that Mexico City was infested with raiders, but in the case of Hermosillo, the regulators managed to punch a serious hole in the raider forces occupying the city, Doesn't take long for wastelanders to flock to the regulators. Although they're brutal and their ways have hardly changed, they do bring law and order to the area. Sound familiar? Now, of course, the regulators don't do this all on their own. They do hire mercenaries and conscript some others to be sent to the front lines because, I mean, hey, if you're gonna be making an impact like that, you gotta have some guys who are ready to die for the cause, so say our ancestors. Combine that with the fact that most raider groups tend to be disorganized, compared to a meticulous gang especially, with the regulators being likened to a police force. By the time the events of Fallout 2, the regulators have carved out a modest but stable presence where they managed to regain their numbers over the years. That brings us to the modern day. By the events of Fallout New Vegas, the regulators are still running Hermosillo, and with Arizona as their closest neighbor, they managed to keep tabs on what's been going on in the former state. We didn't settle in Arizona originally because our ancestors wanted to be sure they were far away from the reach of the Vault Dweller, as well as any forces who might be looking for them. And I gotta say, turns out that was a great idea in hindsight, because had they chosen to try to establish themselves in Arizona, they'd have been assimilated into the Legion. Speaking of them, with them as our neighbors, our groups managed to establish good trading relations with them. As Dale Barton says in the fort, as long as you don't try to sell them booze or chems, they treat you pretty well. And our protagonist in particular would be impressed with the region's security on full display. Our protag goes with such a caravan to a major Legion trading outpost, only to continue to the Mojave outpost where our journey has begun. Now, our ancestors' goal was revenge against the Vault Dweller, obviously a pipe dream back then, and that's not going to happen now because the Vault Dweller has long since passed away. But we associate the Vault Dweller with Shady Sands, once a humble settlement. It is now expanded into a 5-state country called the New California Republic. And since obviously getting revenge against the Vault Dweller is not going to happen, we gotta go after Shady Sands, the next best thing. Or the NCR in this case. No pressure. While our boss, we'll call him Belloc, which is Caleb backwards and a shameless Indiana Jones reference, has tasked our protagonist with disrupting the NCR when she can, we've also been ordered to keep an eye out for opportunities. It's up to us to interpret that as we see fit. Our protagonist's greatest strength is secrecy. The regulators are long since forgotten by this point, so we're gonna take full advantage of that. Moving right along, our first order of business is to help the cons at Boulder City. We may have no love for them personally, but if our orders and incentive are to destabilize the NCR, then hey, why not take advantage of the fact that we and the cons have a common enemy? And because Monroe has a 9mm, we're beating him by bringing a knife to a gunfight. I imagine that our protagonist is familiar with the name, the Great Khans that is. Back in her ancestors' heyday, the Khans were a notorious, powerful band of raiders who were dismantled by none other than the Vault Dweller, another thing they have in common. And I figure, hey, while we're at it, let's give the standard knife some real lovin', and yeah, I know, I could probably use a combat knife because knife is in the name of that weapon too. You might consider that a variant, but I feel like going with the standard knife makes it a little bit more challenging. All that's left for us to do now is to head on inside and let Jessup know what's up. I'm sure he's quite surprised to see this person, some rando in metal armor, because we're not Courier 6. You know, I like to think that in this continuity, Courier 6 got shot and was like, you know what, this isn't worth it, I'm gonna break contract, so they just left through the Mojave Outpost's gate that we're not allowed to enter unless we nuke the I-15. We'll throw our favorite mailman, mail lady a bone for this run. There's gonna be plenty of pain to go around as is. Also gonna show you a little something here. When you wait for those guys to leave the room, which you should, you can get this owned turbo right here. It's always here. And now we're gonna begin to bounce our way on over to Nelson, and we know that in a standard Legion playthrough that we can talk to Dead Sea, and then he's like, oh, if you feel so strong about wiping out Forlorn Hope, go do it. Well, that sounds all well and good, but we're gonna take a bit of a different approach this time. Instead, we can tell Dead Sea that we're gonna go to Kaisar to ask for permission to attack Forlorn Hope. Oh yeah. That said, we do have to hold off for just a little bit. Might as well get to Cottonwood Cove anyway, because First Sergeant Astor, despite the fact we're at Merciful Thug with the NCR and they hate us, trusts us to go and bug the Legion's radio at Cottonwood Cove. Well, we tell Aurelius the Phoenix what's up, and we can return to First Sergeant Astor with some great information. And yeah, just to show you, we can't take the boat just yet, unfortunately. We can, however, fast travel back to Camp Searchlight's little outpost held by the NCR, and First Sergeant Astor just takes us at face value. I have to say, that is one trusting gentleman. You know, when I experienced that for the very first time playing this game years ago, I was kind of surprised by it, because I was like, wait, is there no faction check here for Aster to just not take us at face value? Apparently not. Also, we leveled up. That's pretty cool. Now, unlike the good first sergeant, as we're traveling, we encounter I hesitate to call it a hit squad, because unlike Kaisar's hit squads who just announce that they're there and tell you to defend yourself and attack you, these guys like, no, you have to improve your standing with the NCR. Well, you see, the concept of improvement is a rather limber concept. Improve it how? By practicing my forearm swing with a sledgehammer? Yeah, alright, that sounds good to me. I feel like it's been a hot minute since I've encountered an NCR hit squad. It probably has been. I'm used to fighting Kaisars. They're definitely tougher. These guys are pathetic, man. Like, one of them shows up wearing clothes and a cowboy hat that provides no armor whatsoever. He must be trying to go for a min-max perception build. At least this brave lady has the idea of combat armor and puts up a bit of a fight, the most so far, but still no match for an OG regulator. As we put her down, we have our next volunteer for a good old-fashioned game of whack-a-mole, as we called it in the pre-war days. Well, I don't know about you, but I think our protagonist has certainly improved her standing with the NCR, and by improved it, I mean they hate her even more. That's the kind of improvement we strive for. Well, there's one more place we can hit up, and that's the good old NCRCF, after doing a couple of quests for Eddie, which were super easy and in character for a regulator in my opinion. I feel like we're being true to our roots here, because one of the things the regulators specialized in Fallout 1 was manipulating others, as referenced by good old Caleb, who has long since no longer been with us. And why do I say that? As we finish bludgeoning the NCR here, you might think that we're helping the powder gangers out, but it actually doesn't do us a lot of good to side with them either. As far as we're concerned, they are a rival gang to us, and once the NCR has been repelled, our alliance with them ends, and we're actually going to defend Goodsprings. And why is that? Well, don't forget what the regulators are. They are slavers. And if we're going to be helping out Kaisar's Legion, then we're going to want Goodsprings to be in the best condition possible. And no, that's not a weapon mod I'm using. You see that nice shine on our 10mm? Yeah, we bought Sleepy Time from the GRA. Now, I promise you, I did not kill Lieutenant Gorbitz, nor did I manipulate him into dying. I just heard him scream, and then, well, there he is. I decided to take this as an opportune moment to check the reactions of the other members of 1st Recon, and funny enough, the only one who seems to react to it at all is 10 of Spades. Well, that's okay. They won't have to think about that for very long. Yes, they agreed to come with us to take out the Fiends, specifically Driver Nephi, despite our reputation. We did this in our Walter White run as well. That was really fun. Here, though, we're just going in hammer swinging. I gotta say, I'm having a ton of fun with this weapon. We have better ones in our arsenal, but, I mean, when's the next time we're gonna be able to use a sledgehammer in one of these runs? Probably not for a while. Well, 1st Recon's been butchered. I think we're doing a pretty good job following our boss's orders. But hey, we are gonna take out Cook, as well as the other Fiends, because we can cash in on those bounties, technically. That NCR Ranger with mean girl levels of derision was like, you have to improve your standing. And you know what? I think we'll do just that. Not to improve our standing with them, but hey, why pass up the free bottle caps? And we're removing competition. I figured to show us battling Cook this time. It's usually Nephi, but Cook was pretty fun to fight this time, and we can use his metal armor to repair our own. Well, I don't know about you guys, but helping out the Kings this run is gonna be pretty darn easy. I know, real shocker, that was a spoiler, right? My snark aside there, I always thought it was a real bummer that you can't go to the King and tell him, hey, Pacer got your guys killed. You wanna do something about that? You know, maybe a slap on the wrist? No? Nothing? Alright. Nothing? Alright, well, I guess we're just gonna proceed. Business as usual. Now, we have certainly done our part in destabilizing the NCR to the best of our ability to this point. We're about to confront Benny because we know that Benny has been a very bad boy and made off with something. Mischievous little ruffians that are the Great Khans. Hey, Benny, do you recognize this lighter? Well, it's been pretty good to light my cigars off of, buddy, so thanks for that. So we have to meet up with Kaisar in order to assault Camp Forlorn Hope. Well, To earn an audience with him, I think we're going to impress him by doing what he ordered us to do and destroy the Securitron bunker. And now, we didn't have the science check to disable the Protectrons, but whatever. I mean, they're free XP, man. XP snacks, free real estate, what are we calling them nowadays? Let me know, because I'm not up to date with the latest internet lingo. Now, I want to say right now that I could see an OG regulator actually taking House's side, because as House says, he has no interest in dictating what people do in their private lives, so long as it does not impede with his progress for his greater plans. And we know that if we're an evil courier and we sided with House, that House is very afraid of Courier 6, and that would be very much the same for a regulator from the original game, I think. But that could differ from regulator to regulator, so who's to say that our protagonist, our anti-villain, heroine, whatever you want to call her, might have a different perspective. Remember, one of our other orders was to keep an eye out for opportunity. As we make our way out of the Securitron bunker in fortification, we're going to report back to Kaiser, and he's quite pleased with the results. The ground shaking is a good sign. He might want to send someone down there to check anyway. I've made fun of that plenty of times in my videos. But we're going to ask Kaiser if we can get reinforcements under the Contraburnium to take out Camp Forlorn Hope, and he's like, oh, yeah, sure, why not? You just destroyed Mr. House's hopes and dreams, so yeah, go right ahead. I'm gonna ride that high, baby. Damn it, Benny. I'm starting to catch on to your speech mannerisms, even though I've never met you. Benny is just that cool, you feel? Well, Kaiser does make good on his word and sends us a Contraburnium in the form of a Legion squad led by Decanus Regulus here. What's that? You don't know who this is? Well, my dear hypothetical viewer, I am happy to tell you that we are using a mod that either added Legion content or restored cut content. Not sure which, but either way, super cool. We'll let Decanus Regulus know that we are ready to attack, and you'll pardon me here for being a bit overly cautious because I didn't do any sort of playtesting with this mod. I just went in hook, line, and sinker, and I was like, oh, more Legion content? For the Legion run I said I was gonna do, yeah, let's go, man, just learn as you go. And as we advance towards Camp Forlorn Hope, you're gonna notice something a little bit different here. Now, when we go to Forlorn Hope normally through any playthrough, even when we attack this area, it's pretty bare bones. I'd say destitute would be a compliment to this place. But apparently Major Pilati radioed in and was able to get reinforcements all on his own without intervention from our good old Curia 6. And not only that, but if you're listening to this in the background, I'm going to not demand, but request your attention. All eyes on the screen here because, like, Kaiser has one of his many solutions right in front of him here in the form of a Legion sniper, which we know canonically does not exist because apparently he doesn't take his own definition of synthesis to heart, as in he should totally have Legion snipers at the ready to counter the NCR. As the NCR's greatest strength, according to many legionaries, is the fact that they can fight from long range rather effectively. Hey, maybe in the context of this run, probably from some training from our heroine here, we have some Legion snipers at the ready. Not only that, you read that correctly, we just took down a first recon sniper. I thought we got rid of those guys, but hey, maybe they have more on the way. Maybe they have other divisions. But hey, they got more. I guess they had to replace the one that we turned into a universal tenderizer on whatever road that was. After confirming that Achilles heel exists, we're going to make our way into the tent and dispose of Tech Sergeant Reyes. Oh yeah, by the way, again, I didn't know this when I was recording, but Kaiser does send you to kill Chief Hanlon with this mod installed, and well, I already kind of got that out of the way early on, so I wasn't able to record the dialogue for that. Very sorry about that. With Decanus Regulus holding up things here at Camp Forlorn Hope, let's go ahead and report back to Dead Sea and see what he's got to say, shall we? When we go back to him, his response to us about it being a glorious victory sounds way less passive-aggressive and a lot more earned, a lot more sincere, if you will. Of course, we'll take his blade as an honored gift. We're not allowed to use it, but I mean, we gotta take it, right? And Decanus Regulus coming in clutch. Look at that, we got the Legion support radio. Can't wait to check that out later on. Well, Kaiser did want us to take out Mr. House, so what do you say we go take care of business back at the strip? It wasn't much of a challenge to make our way to the penthouse because Mr. House didn't just straight up cut off access to the elevator. I mean, that's a little bit of an oversight there, my guy. Jabs at developmental oversight aside, I gotta say, this battle was pretty darn exciting. We almost never, this also might be a first for the channel. I'm not saying that just in passing. I actually don't remember if we've done this before. The only thing I can think of is maybe we did this in our Gary special in Fallout New Vegas, our 50 subscriber special. But since we never upgraded the Securitrons, these guys, although they can pack a punch and the damage will add up, nowhere near as dangerous if we were like, yeah, let's just insert the platinum chip. Hey, why not, right? That's one of the opportunities we could have taken. However, because as we established during our awesome scene setting, that we are trade buddies with Caesar's Legion and have no real interest in provoking them, it's better to help him in his conquest of the Mojave rather than provoke his ire, right? Going the independent route would have been tempting and could have given us a spot here, but, you know, better for us to be an operative of Caesar and have his goodwill than, well, our trade relations going south. And as we confront Mr. House and lord over him the fact that Caesar is going to be managing this area going forward, he says what he has to say. He's very upset, hopes that there is a spot in hell reserved for us specifically. Tartarus, bleak, unyielding, whatever he says. You know, I have a knife. We have a knife. Let's put it to use, shall we? You'd think that even the basic knife would be able to kill this guy in 1 or 2 shots, but maybe he's been doing some gains inside a little capsule of his. I guess we'll never know. Well, next up, just like in the vanilla game, Caesar sends us to make contact with the Boomers of Nellis, something we always do in these runs, whether it's to kill them or to make contact with them and have them as an ally, something you think would be a great idea, right? Well, that Field Shacks is quite the discovery, a pretty nice, if modest, player housing location. But there's an even greater treasure here. He's no stranger to the channel. Let's whip out that sniper rifle and zoom in on good old George, yeah, boy. Oh, what's that? No dialogue with him this time? Yeah, we gotta spice it up a little bit here, you know what I mean? Well, after we toss the trash back on the side of the road where it belongs as to not dissuade customers, or daredevils, whatever you want to call them, from attempting this Boomers of Nellis artillery barrage, we take a fair bit of damage ourselves before making it through here, but we do it on the first try. We'll get back to them a little bit later on. I want to check out that Legion radio, and we can call upon a variety of reinforcements. 1 Legion Explorer, that guy must be jacked. 4 standard Legionaries. Or 2 veterans. Let's call upon them and see how they do here. Caesar has sent us to eradicate each and every one of the Ranger Station outposts. Something that anybody siding with Caesar's Legion should do just on principle. But hey, they're taking their sweet time getting here, so I say we get a move on and start a swinging. We're currently at Ranger Station Echo, as evidenced by the ghouls we're going to be taking out here. I gotta say, it feels good to whip out the old Vibroblade. That's what we called it back in the OG Fallout days. I mean, I didn't start with Fallout 1, so I don't have the right to say that. Now, I started with Fallout 3 and circled my way back to Fallout 1, my favorite game in the franchise. And, oh, look at that. Gee, thanks, guys. Glad you showed up now. But, hey, you can make up for your tardiness by helping us take out the next post. Well, after we go take out all the Ranger posts with little difficulty, Caesar is quite happy with us. A real shame they didn't have this in the main game. It feels like something they could have very easily included. Well, more fun for us. So I actually did help the Boomers and raise their bomber, but I experienced a bit of a bug. I wasn't able to tell Caesar that I helped them, so we're gonna fall back on the old-fashioned way of resolving things here. All we have to do is take out Pearl, which we just did, and Loyal, and the Boomers will dissolve over time as far as their infrastructure goes. And I gotta say here, as we get ready to fight Loyal, this guy, you'd think, with all his years of wisdom, and knowing he just isn't what he used to be in his prime, still decides to come after our heroine with, what is that, a combat knife? A lead pipe? I don't know. Something terrible to fight someone of our stature with. Next up, Caesar sends us to Helios 1 to activate Archimedes. Yeah, that's right. And wouldn't you know it, between the Legion drop boxes and the fact that veteran Atticus will routinely give us stealth boys because they're forbidden in the Legion for some reason. Yes, I know the reason, it's just very impractical. We sneakity sneak our way past all those mean old robots, and after failing to backtrack and get some scrap metal, you saw me pass the science check, we're good to go there. We can fire up good old Archimedes, and just like a pre-war showing of July 4th, good old fireworks Independence Day. With a slight twist of the time, once we activate the weapon anytime between 9 AM and 3 PM, we can just begin to bounce our way back on outside. I almost said inside, my bad. Though we are still within the confines of Helios 1, so maybe that wasn't a typo, verbally typo, whatever, after all. And now, sadly, going this option does forbid us from recruiting Arcade Ganon, even if we used our disguise to bypass the faction check, which prevents him from joining us. Activating Archimedes makes Arcade Ganon forever hate us, even though in this instance he has no idea we're the ones doing it, because there are no survivors here in Helios 1, how can they report it, right? I say that because we could have used Arcade Ganon to, let's say, help out Kaisar a bit later on. We don't have that option, but we don't need his help anyway. And now, once we're done here, we're used to having Kaisar send us after the Brotherhood of Steel, but we got one more thing to do before that. We have to go help out the Emeritus. This is optional in the vanilla game of Fallout New Vegas, but because Kaisar does not trust them to lick his boots, can't say I blame him, he wants us to go keep tabs on them and make sure they're holding up their end of the bargain. Alright then, all we have to do there, we've done this in previous playthroughs, namely in our recent Omerta Thug run. We have to track down 2 items, some chlorine for Clan so we can make some kind of gas bomb, whatever, and a group of fiends who have accosted a shipment that was due for the Omertas to help out the Legion. I gotta say, that's great show don't tell for how Kaisar keeps his affiliations independent of one another. And hey, speaking of cool, check this out. As we get that weapon shipment, we're gonna go back to the Godon Gamora, talk to this Omerta thug right here, and he's trying to hold us up, stand us up. Really, basically check us out, right? Test us out, see if we've got the spine. He said it's his job after that Kaisar's Legion faction check. He's like, oh, I'm just doing my job, man. Heck yeah. I'm having way too much fun with this voiceover. It's been so long since we've done a run where we've sided with the Legion. And what was really cool about this was that we are locked into helping Big Sol and Nero. Makes perfect sense for the narrative. It's just that I thought it was kind of interesting. Once we take the order from Kaisar, we're locked into it. Yeah, well, it's fun seeing Kachino getting his brains blown out every now and then. That guy's a scumbag, too. And, well, I hope you guys were not tired of faction checks for our speech, because they're not getting old anytime soon. After using our outstanding reputation with Kaisar's Legion to tell Big Sal to tell us what the plan is, he tells us hook, line, and sinker, and that's pretty darn cool. Again, a real shame this was cut from the main game. This seems like it would have been very easy to implement into the final release, right? Well, since we have the weapon shipment, we can just go back to good old Mick and Ralph's to get some chlorine. We're pretty much done here. We can go back to Kaisar and check out his unique dialogue, and, well, he's pretty happy with us so far. And now, next up, he is going to send us to go forge an alliance between his Legion and the White Gloves. This is something that exists in the vanilla game. I'm just going to pan right over this because it's incredibly easy. But before we take care of business, what do you say we swing back onto good old Camp Forlorn Hope and see how things are going here? Turns out that Decanus Regulus is doing quite well for himself here. We can have some idle chit-chat with him. He's pretty bro-y, all things considered. Really broing out for our heroine protagonist. Now, while it's cool to learn more about this guy, what's really awesome here is that normally in Camp Forlorn Hope, if you do side with the Legion, you lose out on a couple of merchants, those being Dr. Richards and Quartermaster Hayes, if you want to call the latter a merchant. Not here, though, man. No, Decanus Regulus is ready to sell to us because we are broing out with the Legion. We can trade with him anytime, but for the time being, let's move forward. So we're going to speed run the White Glove saga for Kaisar's Legion. We're going to gun down Ted Gunderson. I mean, I always feel pretty good about doing that. He might be the most annoying NPC in the entire game. And then after that, we can spill some conveniently cupped blood in our hands. I would have loved to have seen us run through the White Glove Society's casino with the blood in our hands as we're ready to spill it, and then frame Het Gunderson here. I don't think that would have flown, but maybe we had a vial on hand or something. Maybe it was a Stimpack syringe we didn't throw away. So, just like in a normal run, Kaiser wants us to eradicate the Brotherhood of Steel. I'm game. We're gonna do this the old-fashioned way. Guns is swinging, and by guns is swinging, I mean we're gonna swing our sledgehammer until everything in here stops moving. Now, here's a callback to our heroine's past here. Not her past specifically, that of our ancestors. The Regulators would be familiar with the term Brotherhood of Steel. They were a pretty big deal back when the Regulators were causing trouble back in the good old Angel's Boneyard. I could just imagine her going through here and thinking, wow, the Great Khans kinda suck here in the Mojave. The Brotherhood of Steel kind of ended up sucking, didn't see that one coming according to Grandpap's stories. As we take out Paladin Ramos and his goons, we're gonna slap on our follower's lab coat, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I did not realize that I had to repair our metal armor, so, this might be a rule breaker and a failed run because we're only allowed to wear metal armor in combat, not necessarily out of combat for skill checks, but, you know. However, this also makes what we're going through right now way harder because, well, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that metal armor is way more protective than a trust me, I'm a doctor lab coat, but hey, let's do it anyway. You know, the funny part is that when you're wearing metal armor, your hands are covered in some kind of latex-looking glove or something, and I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that because I was in such tunnel vision here. I was like, okay, we're gonna go through here and try our best to wipe out the Brotherhood, hopefully on the first try, and I didn't notice anything else. Just shooting things down, swinging our sledgehammer, all that good stuff. I'm gonna notice that a little bit later on, but for now, just trust me, because our MC might have medicinal experience. I'm very proud of that kill, by the way. Not too concerned about this area since we ended up hacking the terminals. It's the next area I'm a little bit worried about, and is going to be quite cathartic because as veterans of Midlothian Odyssey know, I like to sneak on out of the Brotherhood of Steel's bunker. You know, you gotta deal with things efficiently. But this time around, since we're strong enough to actually fight them, not too concerned about escaping, because I say that because there's a Brotherhood scribe there who must have a 10 perception, because if you don't have satellite running, he's probably gonna spot you, and he's already dead. Oh, I hate that guy, man. Like, why is that guy not the elder of this bunker? Like, that guy's awesome. That guy is way more competent than McNamara or Hardin, apparently. Well, speaking of McNamara, he won't have to worry about confiding in Senior Knight Lorenzo because he is no longer among the living. We're gonna go and switch on over to our good old Vibroblade here and take out the Brotherhood scribes and knights still in the room with little opposition. You'd think these guys were appalled at the sight of a follower's lab coat, and going through this in editing, I'm like, you know what this is for me, cathartically speaking, probably for you too, what I'm about to say, is that, you know when you help Veronica and you tell her to leave the Brotherhood, and the Brotherhood just straight up kills all the followers in that outpost for no real reason? Yeah, I call this Revenge of the Followers. Hey, speaking of the Followers of the Apocalypse, that is a faction our character would be familiar with and one we are idolized with, because followers being idolized is good for everybody, whether you're good or bad. I mean, Julie Farkas probably doesn't like the fact that we're helping the Legion, but hey, at least we can guarantee that she and the followers get safe passage, as long as we keep Kaiser alive. Are we gonna do that, though? Well, opportunity may call, but we'll get to that later. Well, McNamara and his two cheerleaders are very easy to take out, so we're gonna go play good old Bonkaroo with Head Paladin Hardin, and with unrestricted access to those wonderful key cards, let's go and do what we always do, and blow this place up. Hey, since we didn't meet Veronica this run, that means that she gets to finally live in one of these runs. I mean, I say finally because we've been broing out for Veronica 2 recently, but she tends to die in a lot of these challenge runs, so it's good to keep her alive because she's awesome. One of my favorite characters, but you know, sometimes for the sake of a challenge video, she's gotta go, but this run ain't one of them. Now, next up is Kaiser's unfortunate condition, and we have to go to Vault 34. Now, one thing that did confuse me a bit here is that I thought the enemies here would kind of scale with us. They don't seem to, as we have our good old Vibroblade out, ready to just turn this entire place into a giant jar of chunky salsa. I kind of assumed that the Vault Ghouls would have all been Feral Ghoul Reavers. I was dreading the absolute heck out of this place, but turns out it's not that bad to get through. And hey, speaking of Feral Ghoul Reavers, did you know that if you explore the, I forget the name of it, it's a place overrun with radiation. It's got a shack there, it's closed off, it's a nuclear test, I think it's like called the old testing site or something. You can go there at like level 3, and there's a bunch of Feral Ghoul Reavers there. Well, so much for exploring things there. Natural barrier my behind. Just very, very different from Fallout 3, which is not a criticism nor a complaint. I just thought it was very interesting. Like, the game is straight up saying, hey, don't come here until you're ready to fight a bunch of glowing ones and Feral Ghoul Reavers. Well, that's not the case here in Vault 34. Thankfully, because we need the Autodoc to give Kaisar some cyber medicine. Well, we give him that tech goodness that he bans from just about everybody else in the Legion, unless they have earned his favor. Nice, jerk. At least you're transparent about, what do you call that? Nepotism? And yeah, I do think that our character, especially because we're playing a female regulator, has great interest in keeping Kaisar, Edward Sallow, as the head of the Legion. Although I like to think, unless you're playing a Raider-style courier through and through, that you want to keep good old Sallow in charge of Kaisar's Legion. Now, with our plethora of stealth boys, we're going to go ahead and rig that terminal there to activate the anti-air gun. I'm pretty nervous, as you can see, as I use a stealth boy a second time for no discernible reason, other than the fact that if the stealth boy drops, the mission fails because the NCR will spot me, open fire on me, and we won't have the chance to assassinate Kimball. Well, once the good old NCR president gets here and is ready to deliver a speech that someone else wrote for him, once the Rangers are done escorting him to the podium where he can deliver his fabricated speech, we're going to go on over to the terminal, rig it, as we just said, and believe it or not, I actually sat through this entire speech. I've never done that before. I'm not going to put you guys through that, but it was about 10 minutes long, and I liked his little impromptu after the speech was done. Not that it matters, because he just got blown to Kingdom Come. Oh, and if you thought we were done with Legion content yet, oh no, we gotta deal with the Van Graffs going down here. We tell the Strange Man that we're an agent of Kaisar, and we're gonna make sure the deal goes down. Now, this seems pretty cool, right? Because we know that in a standard playthrough, we have to help the Van Graffs take out the Legion. Or we don't. I've never tried just standing back. Maybe we'll try that another time, but for now, we tell Gloria Van Graff that we're not about to let this go down because, oh wait, true to Kaisar! She says suit yourself, that's fine by me, baby. Now, we just have to be careful not to hit the Legionaries here, and if you're curious, yeah, I killed Cass at the Mojave Outpost, so moving forward with this was very easy. There's a lot more disrupting of the NCR that we did that I wasn't able to show, otherwise this would be like a 3-hour long video. Now, the Van Graffs and the NCR are quite easy to mop up here, and don't think that the Decanus Avitus, is not grateful for our help. Check this out. Once we're done here, make our way back onto the Silver Rush, and check it out. We have a vendor here. We have not lost anything of value. Yeah, having way too much fun with this voiceover. This run was so fun, man. I love this run. Oh, and because I know someone's gonna ask, if you want to see the mod and credit for who designed it, check the description. I have a bunch of other mods listed down there too. Check it out. Okay, all that's left is to storm Hoover Dam in the name of Kaisar, so let's get to it, shall we? Salve, my friend. Good to see you. Now, I feel a bit bad because the start of our assault on Hoover Dam not only lacks the Legion snipers we had at Forlorn Hope, I guess they're holding down the fort back at Forlorn Hope, but because the NCR on this site are so easy to take out that we don't have to engage in combat at all. So, if you'll allow me a sec to plug myself, don't take that out of context, please. I've got a fresh Discord server ready to go. It is still a work in progress, but if you're interested in joining up, it's a great way to keep tabs on what's going on here on the channel. Not only that, but I started up a Blue Sky account, and that'll be the best place to go for channel updates if you're not the Discord type. I'm not the moderator sort either, so I don't blame you. But if you're wondering about Twitter, well, I did try to set up an account, but for some reason I got flagged as a bot. So I said screw it and went to Blue Sky instead. Gonna be creating a Mastodon in the near future too, so stay tuned. And by the next video, I'll have our channel membership program and Patreon donezo, so keep on the lookout. That's enough of shamelessly promoting myself. Let's get back to shamelessly making the NCR look worse than the story of Fallout New Vegas already shows them to be, shall we? I'll thank the live-action show for making that come full circle. On the second side of the surface level, I guess we'll call it, of Hoover Dam, not much of a problem here. We do have to engage in combat by taking out the snipers, as we told our Toughness buddy back in the halfway point there. We go ahead and release the intake valves to let our good old Kenturian buddy and his Controburnium start laying waste to everything around them. Now, I haven't talked much about our character or the regulators beyond the introduction, the scene setting, all that good stuff, and of course our goal. As we established early on, the regulators of Adamosio and Caesar's Legion are trading partners. This does stem, in part, from more Cut Legion content that we never got to see, and don't worry, I've got another video planned to explore even more of Caesar's glorious content, which we were denied due to, well, you know the time crunch story. I'm not going to beat that dead horse. But there is a particular reason I chose a female protagonist. When it comes to interacting with Caesar's Legion in ways other than broing out with Boone, another great pastime I love partaking in, and going ham on the Legion, I think that a female protagonist siding with the Legion has a far more interesting story to tell, one that I sadly cannot cover in a challenge video here. Now, if we really wanted to stick it to the Legion, our FemC would be supporting the NCR. Now, you can do this with any of the other three routes, but why the NCR in particular? The NCR is the Legion's mortal enemy, and what better way to straight up disprove their questionable, we'll say, methods by having an awesome heroine kick their ass in the name of the New California Republic. Well, I think a pro-Legion FemC also provides the opportunity to tell a story of how to spark change within the Legion, but in a way that comes from someone who is as brutal and uncompromising as the rest of them. And being an old-school regulator felt like just the right opportunity. I drew inspiration from a particular scene in Dragon Age Origins, one of my all-time favorite games, and it comes from a scene in Denerim, when the Warden has to investigate the missing elves from the elven alienage. You have the opportunity to question the morality of a female elf who is assisting in the scheme of selling elves from the alienage into slavery, and her justification always stuck with me. Would be a real fun game to add to the channel one of these days now, wouldn't it? I won't bog you down with the details, but it boils down to her as well as other elves, male or female, partaking in this scheme, not feeling sympathy for their kin because in her mind, she should not, nor should the other elves involved with this little scheme. And that's kind of similar for our protagonist here as a regulator. Why should she care about what Caesar's Legion does? They're the ally of the regulators of Adamosio after all. And not only that, but it's a great way to prove our worth as an ally, and that also provides future growth for the Legion because, as we know, Caesar is obsessed with conquering the NCR. What comes after? Well, even he doesn't know. And this is assuming that the synthesis he has predicted will happen when he conquers the NCR will happen. But if you're me and you're supporting the Legion in one of your playthroughs and you want to keep Caesar in charge, well, you can always headcanon it to where you take Caesar to the Big Empty via your little transponder gun there by grabbing a hold of him, and having the Big Empty scientist, Dr. Klein, just turn him into a cyborg, so Caesar just rules for all time. Or at least an extended period of time. I don't know, it's the Big Empty, man, they do what they want. And I think that Caesar would be totally on brand with being able to stay in power for far longer because he does have a vision for the Legion, not just the Legion, but the future of mankind. So much of that is in content that was cut from the game that many modders have graciously restored for our enjoyment and our experience. And speaking of which, do you see what's going on screen right now? Like, General Oliver should be bludgeoned into friggin' putty, but nah. We gotta wait until he guns down these Prime Legionnaires. Yeah, totally see that happening, right? Man, that was bad. That's why I had to stop myself from laughing in between takes there, because it's so ridiculous. Like, come on, man. Like, if the two NCR veteran rangers that we are currently playing a game of tag with right now were the ones that gunned them down, yeah, I totally understand that. And hey, we finished the game of tag, they were it, no takebacks here, so let's go ahead and zoom in on General Oliver here to see what he has to say. I'm sure he's riding the high of miraculously taking out those Prime Legionaries. Well, he was, he's not anymore, so let's go and see how his little 6-pack of cheerleaders do against us, shall we? We have Silent Running, which negates the weight of our sneaking. We're wearing metal armor, super heavy. I'm sure that's not a problem at all. And going through here, man, like we got full-on sneak. We got our stealth boy on. These guys really don't see it coming. Now, I would say that the game is just broken, but no, we know, especially Fallout New Vegas Faction Warriors fans, know just how bad the heavy troopers are. You see that on full display here, man. Like, they're not nerfed like they are at the control room. No, these guys just suck. But if you are a fan of the NCR Heavy Troopers, then I implore you to check out my Fallout New Vegas as an NCR Heavy Trooper run. I did on a very hard mode as well as hardcore mode. Very fun. Yeah, I know I just kind of talked over the final battle, but like, conquering Hoover Dam as the Legion is, well, maybe it's just me, it feels a lot easier. And hey, LegionaryH is very happy with our heroine's performance here. I am too. That was a kick-ass run. I hope you guys had as much fun with that as I did. Again, if you want to check out the Legion content that was restored in this run, check in the description below for a link to the mod, and just go nuts. It's a lot of fun. I learned this the hard way going through this mod, but if you want the best experience with this mod, rush to getting to New Vegas as quickly as you can. And hey, speaking of New Vegas, we got plenty more runs on the way, baby. Oh yeah. Also, a good old-fashioned Fallout 3 run in the form of a continuation of a run we've already done as we go through Fallout 3 Broken Steel as Amada Almodovar. I hope I'm saying that right. And Elder Scrolls Oblivion, no magic or magical gear. I'll see you guys there. Take it easy. Have a good one.